Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Jenny's Self-Care Lab. And today is Wellness Wednesday. That is today's theme. And we're going to be talking about how wellness and skin connect. So today's video, we're actually chatting a little bit about our menstrual cycle. And we'll touch a little bit on hormones because when we talk about menstrual cycle, we can't talk about it and not talk about hormones and how all of this is going to present itself on our skin as we go through the different phases. So this is an introductory video. We're going to be starting a series next week on hormones specifically, where we're going to be breaking down the understanding of the different hormones that are at play in our bodies. Now, there's a lot of them. So I've chosen a couple that I was like, okay, I think these few would be interesting to start off with. And I think they're the ones that if I can get a good understanding of these, I can better understand my body, how to treat my skin during these phases, and even outside of like just your skin, how to move your body, what to eat, and kind of an explanation of why you might be feeling some type of way at different times in the month. So I found this to be an extreme game changer for me because the moment I started to actually track and pay attention to my body and go, oh, like when it's this time of the month, this is how I feel, and I'm getting closer to this phase, and I'm in this phase now, and here's why I'm having all these like sleepless nights or like just like weird things that I before, I guess, was like, I know that this has to do with something in my body that's natural, but I couldn't quite articulate it for myself. And now I'm able to pick up what the call it the routine things are versus the things that are not routine. And I've seen that even with my skin. So when I sometimes get a pimple during my luteal phase, I'm not like, oh my gosh, my skin is breaking out. I need new products. No, I look at it as, oh, that's what's happening. Like this is happening in my body right now. That's why I'm getting a pimple, and here's how I can treat it, right? This is what's happening with my hormones. So it's not unusual for me to be getting this. So let me use this product for my skin during this phase. And so it's been a game changer for me, even from a weight loss perspective, because now I better understand even my cravings and why I'm having those cravings and how to counter the cravings that I'm having. So this is hopefully going to be helpful for you guys in not just your skincare routine, but in just your overall self-care and wellness. So that is why we call it Wellness Wednesdays. Let's get into it. Okay. So regardless of who you are, whether you have dry skin, oily skin, combo skin, normal skin, sensitive skin, it is not about your skin type. It is about the fact that your hormones are going to be fluctuating from time to time. And one thing about hormones, they play such a huge role in how your skin behaves. And so we're going to do a very brief overview of the menstrual cycle and the different phases. And for each of the phases, I'll very high level touch on what you can expect to be happening to your skin at this time, and what you should be thinking about. In the videos starting next week, in the series starting next week on hormones, when we talk about each of the different hormones, like for example, we'll talk about estrogen and we'll dive into estrogen and understand and unpack it a little bit more so that we can understand what should we be using on our skin, what should we be eating, how should we be moving our bodies, what else should we be thinking about, what other symptoms can we expect during this time. So it will be a much more in-depth discussion of the different hormones separately. But for today, it's going to be a quick high-level overview. Let's get it. Okay, so the menstrual cycle is made up of 4 phases. And basically, you have your menstruation cycle, which is or menstruation phase, which is the time when you're on your period. Then you have the phase right after that, which is the follicular phase. This is when your body is now like, okay, we've bounced back from whatever was happening in the menstruation phase. We're now getting ready for ovulation. And then we have the third phase, which is your ovulation phase. And then we have the luteal phase, which is that phase right before our periods. And I bet a lot of us know about this phase because that's when, if you're anything like me, you are having breakouts, you have cravings. It's just the world is looking a little bit wild during that phase. Okay. We're now at World War III in the luteal phase. And so we're going to be unpacking those a little bit more. And then I'll talk about what you can expect from your skin's perspective. Okay, So during your menstruation phase, this is where your body is shedding the uterine lining. You're actually on your period during this time. So however many days that is, 3, 4, 5, 6 days, during this period, this is your menstruation phase, and your body is going through this idea that, okay, there's no baby, and so we need to shed the uterine lining. Your body's now realized that there's not going to be a pregnancy, right? During this phase, there are a couple of hormones that I think are a lot more there's a number of hormones in your body. However, during this phase, we'll talk a lot more about estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Estrogen during this time, which is the beauty hormone, is significantly low, um, as well as progesterone. So estrogen is the beauty hormone. It's responsible for you looking like a sweetheart. And then your testosterone is linked to oil production. And then you've got progesterone, which is a very important hormone in the reproductive cycle, but also does contribute to oil production in some ways. And so during your actual menstrual cycle, so during your period, your estrogen as well as your progesterone will drop significantly. So during this time, you might see that like you have a lot less oil production going on. You have your skin is feeling dull. It's maybe feeling just like it's not your normal skin. You might see like darker under eyes, and it might even feel a little bit dehydrated if you have dry skin like I do. And so during this time, if you have dry skin, I would implore you to make sure that you're using products for your skin that have hydrating elements in them or ingredients. So like I said in a previous video, I'm a fan of hyaluronic acid. It does the job, but it also is good for my sensitive skin. Glycerine products with that, which a lot of them will have glycerine, is very good as well. And then, I mean, there are a number of other ingredients like your squalene and everything like that that are also good with hydration, but I'm a fan of hyaluronic acid. So because I have dry skin, I normally experience my skin to be a little bit more dull and dehydrated during this time. And so I focus a lot on hydrating my skin throughout my skincare routine. And that's not just for my face, but for my body too. If you have oily skin, you will see that during your actual periods, you have a lot less oil production. And so while you may not necessarily have any new breakouts in terms of like pimples and stuff like that, you might see that your skin is a lot more tired, and you might still be fighting the breakouts from the phase right before your actual period. If you are having breakouts during this time, it might be for other reasons. Now, that doesn't mean you can't ever have them at all. Obviously, our skin is all different. We're all unique. So you have to kind of go on this journey of figuring out how does your skin behave during this cycle. But if it's something that you're like, oh yeah, I don't typically break out during my period, I break out before, then whatever breakouts you might have during your cycle might be related to something else. So it might be like uh, personal hygiene, it might be like the food you're eating, it might be stress and other related elements. All right. And then we have the second phase, which is your follicular phase. Now, in your follicular phase, that's where you are just out of your period, you're just done with your period, and your body is starting to bounce back. Your hormones are starting to bounce back, and particularly estrogen starts to rise at this point. So you will see that your skin is a lot less dry. It feels a little bit more balanced. You're starting to kind of get that glow back. It doesn't feel as dry, and it's also less sensitive. So whenever you're during your menstrual cycle, it would have been a little bit more sensitive, whereas during the follicular phase, it will feel a lot less sensitive. And so your skin will feel renewed, revived. If you have dry skin during this time, just continue with your normal skincare routine, making sure that you are keeping your skin clean and clear. So you should be doing your exfoliations during this time. You can go for some skin treatments during this time. And then if you have oily skin, your skin is probably breakout free at this time because everything is starting to kind of bounce back. It doesn't feel as tired and doesn't feel as drier than usual. Okay, so the key here is to maximize, ride the estrogen is rising wave, literally, and just keep your normal skincare routine. All right, then you get into the ovulation piece of it. So when you're ovulating, your hormones are at their peak. Okay, like they are, estrogen is like, girl, I am it. Progesterone is like, sis, say less. Like they are literally peaking. Testosterone is on a whole other vibe. Um, and then there is a significant change in your oil production. There's a significant change in your oil production. You are glowing within your ovulation phase. Your skin looks plump, you're glowing. The beautifying hormone is doing its thing. However, if you do have oily skin, during this phase, you might notice that, so people who with oily skin who typically might have excess sebum oils or higher sebum productions, they might have more oil during this time. And so you could experience mid-cycle breakouts. Do not be alarmed. That is because your hormones are at their peak. And what that also means when your hormones are at their peak is that you are creating more oil than you were maybe during your menstrual cycle. And so you may start to see some breakouts in some areas of your skin. Again, always important to just listen to your skin and read, like kind of learn yourself, right? So that, again, yes, hormones are a big part of skin, but they also could be other contributing factors. Like I said, skin, like I said, diet, stress is another big one, personal hygiene. So, and actual products that you're using if you're not using products that are good for your skin or sensitive enough for the sensitivity of your skin or that respond to the sensitivity of your skin. During this time, you want to, again, maintain a good skincare routine. You want to make sure that you're exfoliating every couple of days, gentle exfoliators. So think your Dead Sea minerals. That's what I use for my exfoliating product. I like something that is simple and that is still soothing to my skin and just kind of very sensitive or lightweight. And you also maybe want to think about if you're using an AHA, you're making like a glycolic acid, something that is lightweight and isn't too stringent on your skin for exfoliation. And then you also want to just be careful with your hydration, right? So just because you're not in your menstrual cycle phase doesn't mean you shouldn't be worried about hydration. You always want to make sure that you're hydrating your skin sufficiently. It's just that in your menstruation cycle, you might be a little bit more intense about that, right? So if your normal skincare routine has hydration, you're using that in your follicular and ovulation phase. But in your menstruation phase, if you have dry skin like me, you are maybe doing a hydration mask every 3 days or something like that, just because you want to make sure that your skin is feeling hydrated and because you know that it's a period where it tends to feel a little bit more dehydrated. Okay, lastly is the luteal phase. Now, in this phase, Sana, we are at war. We are at war. This is the phase where you see breakouts. This is the phase where you're tired. You just want to nap all the time. You have cravings. They are on peak, on fleek. So the luteal phase is highly characterized by higher oil productions, so increased sebum production during this time. And that is for the reason that progesterone is at its peak in the luteal phase. If you think about a graph of which phases that you're in and how these hormones look, your estrogen is much higher within your follicular phase, kind of towards your ovulation phase. Once you get to your luteal, right after your ovulation phase, as you get into your luteal phase, your estrogen starts to drop. Once you're in your menstrual phase, then like it's goodbye. It's goodbye. Estrogen's like, second half, I'll see you later. Then we think about progesterone, right? Progesterone, it's typically kind of like much lower than estrogen, but like kind of keeping up in the sense that it starts to rise after your period. It starts to go up gently, slowly. During your ovulation period, it's still rising a little bit, but it's really in the luteal phase that that girl is peaking. Progesterone is responsible for oil production, or at least it contributes to oil production. Okay, so you will see that this girl during the luteal phase, she is on a high. So if you have oily skin, expect that during this phase, you are likely going to be having some breakouts. Your skin is going to need a little bit more tender, loving, and care. You might also see redness. You might also see that it's a lot more sensitive, right? So it reacts very easily to new things. I would not try any new products in the luteal phase. Reason being that if you're trying something new during that time and your skin is that sensitive, there's a high likelihood that your skin will respond or react. And then you might think, oh, it's the product, but your skin is in a sensitive phase, right? So perhaps don't be trying new things during that time. If I was trying a new product, which I typically try new products all the time, I often try them during the progesterone phase and the kind of the or ovulation phase. So those phases in between luteal and the menstruation cycle, just because those are the phases where I feel like my skin is back to its normal, self. Whereas in the luteal phase, I'm not okay. The world needs to stop. In the menstruation phase, I'm just like, why are we here again every single month? Do you know what I mean? Like, why? So I never try anything related to new skincare during that time. All right. And then testosterone is highest during your ovulation phase, but and testosterone is responsible for oil production. So you will see that right after that ovulation phase, you will 100% start seeing like some breakouts if you have oily skin in general and you have excess oils. So just make sure that when you're in the luteal phase, like you are, making sure that you've got your salicylic acid, the ingredients that are really good with acne prone skin and that kind of stuff. Like make sure that you're using those, make sure that you're exfoliating every couple of days, but gentle exfoliators, gentle exfoliators. And if you have dry skin, you might see a lot more sensitivity and redness during this time. So maybe not necessarily breakouts. Or if you do have breakouts like I do, like I have dry skin, but my breakouts aren't that many. I'll have like one or two pimples at most. But still, my skin typically during that time feels just a lot more like it's just not trying to play with all the other kids. You know what I mean? Like it's just like, nah, pieces, deuces. So think about that. But one of the reasons why in general, it's so important to understand the different phases of the hormone cycle is because it's constantly fluctuating, but though it is predictable for the most part, it is important that you as an individual are aware of how your body and how your skin is reacting to each of those different hormones. Again, this is very, very, very high level. So if you're listening to this, I do implore you to make sure that you catch next week's Wellness Wednesday, where we'll be starting the hormone series and delving deeper into the different hormones and unpacking them a little bit better, because also by age that will depend, right? As if you're a teenager versus if you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, 50s, and upwards, your hormones in general are set up differently. And so there's a couple of other things you might want to consider. And then, of course, there is, if you're pregnant currently or trying to get pregnant, there are those considerations. And then, of course, menopause, premenopause are other considerations. So this was very, very high level. There's so much more to it, but I hope that this introduction has at least given you a sense of your menstrual cycle. In general, the tips across the board is whether you're dry skin, oily skin, I would say just stay hydrated throughout your whole cycle. Make sure you're using products that have hydration, because even people with oily skin must have hydration in their products. Make sure that you're using gentle exfoliators. Personally, I'm not a fan of products with harsh ingredients or exfoliators that are really harsh on my skin. Like stick to gentle exfoliators, even when you're not in your follicular phase or your ovulation phase. Like regardless of the phase, stick to gentle exfoliators. And this is one of the things I truly love about Korean skincare, is that a lot of the skincare in Korea is created with sensitive skin in mind, because Asians, which is a different video that I'll be doing for you guys on Transformation Tuesday in the next 2 weeks, in general, Asians tend to have sensitive skin. And so a lot of Korean products are created with sensitive skin in mind. And that is one of the reasons why I really do love their products, because as somebody who has lived with sensitive skin for a very long time, and my skin can just decide any day now is tea time, we don't like to use this product anymore. I love that Korean skincare is created with that in mind. It's not harsh on my skin. It's very gentle. A lot of the ingredients are kind of your natural ingredients, if you will. And yeah, the ingredients are just not harsh. They're really good on the skin. So it's one of the reasons why I do love them. They've got gentle products. So it makes it easy for me to use the same products across all my different cycles. And then of course tweaking and adding as and when I need to, depending on what is happening. Okay. And then something that is really important that I'll also share in a different video on is making sure that you're constantly soothing your skin in the luteal phase and even during your menstruation cycle. Sometimes my uncomfortability when I'm on my period is not because my skin is that sensitive. It's because I'm in general as a human going through a lot of pain, feeling a lot of things. And so in general, I'm like irritable. So one of the things I found is like doing like a soothing face mask during that time to help with dullness, but also just to help calm me down helps. But particularly in the luteal phase when my skin is feeling sensitive and feeling some type of way, because of the difference in hormones and the estrogen being super low, I tend to I'm drawn more to products that are soothing. So your tea trees, your green teas, your tea tree masks, your green tea masks, like just calendula and sika, like those kind of ingredients are the ones that I tend to use a lot more during that time because I find them to be very soothing to the skin. But nonetheless, let me know if there is, drop a comment in the chats. Drop a comment in the chats. Let me know if there's anything else that you would love for us to touch on as we think about this hormonal series, beyond just talking about the different hormones and how they affect our skin or our diet or how we should be moving our bodies or just our general well-being. And yeah, like, share, subscribe, and we can't wait to see you next week. Annyeong.